Welcome to Talk of the Townsends, Albania's #1 gardening podcast. Today on the episode, to prune or not to prune, and fertilizer. It's not just for homemade bombs anymore. I'm Benedict Townsend.
And I am Hannah Townsend.
And this is actually Talk of the Townsends, the #1 show about achieving enlightenment and chatting and stuff like that. Hannah, how you doing?
You always get out in front of me with the how you doing.
I do. It's just because you're so good at starting the show.
You're
so good and pretty at it. I'd be cursed if I tried to start the show.
You're like, I got nothing. What have you got?
I've got a question for you.
Tell me.
Right? And think carefully before answering. If you could go to space, would you?
No.
And think carefully before answering.
Absolutely not.
You would not go to space.
I've got no business being in space.
You've got no business.
All my business is on land.
But they come to you, they go, all expenses paid, trip to space. I don't know if there's normally expenses, right? We want to test the effects of space on podcasters.
Yeah.
We want to do a fashion show in space. You're not saying yes.
No. It's very similar to, I hate to mention the Titan 5.
Yeah.
But
Was there 5?
were there not?
I don't know.
I think there were.
Well remembered, if
Wasn't
so.
it the Titan 5? The two, and then the driver. 5.
Sure. A classic 5.
Name all the people on the Titan 5. The two, and
the driver. The driver. The submarine driver.
But there was...
But rest in peace.
No, but there was that thing that happened where they got a load of people down into the bay and they were like, we're going to see the Titanic on a submarine. And they were just playing them a video because realistically, if you're trapped in a metal box, right, and there's a screen saying this is what's outside, you have no idea if that's outside. And they were in the water, but they just weren't taking them.
Wait, so sorry, they tricked them into thinking they were underwater, but they were actually just showing them a video.
I'm sure that this happened. They tricked a load of people and said, you're going to the Titanic. But realistically, all they were is they were in a submarine, they were underwater. They weren't like sat in like a Chuck E. Cheese, like you're at the Titanic. Like they were underwater, but they were nowhere near the Titanic because it's so dangerous. And that's the thing. And then all those people got off and they were like, great, we've seen the Titanic. And it's exactly the same.
So wait, sorry, are you saying that space doesn't exist, or are you saying that people are going to trick you into thinking you've been to space?
No, I'm saying there's just no point because you may as well just watch a video.
Oh, you're saying it's so similar to the fake experience that it's not worth doing?
Yeah.
I think I heard about this. There was a thing in Florida where they tricked a bunch of people into going to I think it was called a space mountain. Turns out they were indoors the whole time. Really shocking stuff. What if you could go to space and you could do a spacewalk where you go out of the space station and they float around and they're always like drilling stuff or whatever. What if you could do a spacewalk?
It's honestly, it's just none of my business what's up there. It really isn't.
I mean, there's nothing much up there, but
it's none of my business. Look, space can keep itself to itself, and I'll stay down here on land. I just don't. I'm not up for it. And the thing is especially if I'm not getting out of the rocket, what's the point?
Yeah, but you would if you did a spacewalk, right, where you could float around. You wouldn't want to do that.
But you could just go in one of those wind tunnels, and it'd be the same.
No, it wouldn't, because the whole point of space is there's no wind. It'd be the complete opposite. You'd be in 0 G.
I mean those things where, that you're in a little circular thing, the wind is coming up, and that guy spins you around. It's exactly the same.
What, the skydiving simulator?
Yeah.
That's not the same.
And then stick a video on of space.
But there's no wind in space. That's the whole point. Have you ever seen those?
It's the same, though. I'm floating. Okay, I'm not floating like 0 Gs, but I'm floating in... It's the same.
But have you ever seen those videos where they're outside the space station? You can see the Earth, flat as it is, in the background, and it's kind of scary because you're just like in space. You wouldn't want to have that experience? See the glow of the Earth?
The experience versus the danger when I could just stick on a video and be in that wind tunnel is exactly the same.
This is our first mention of danger, which would be maybe the reason I wouldn't do it. I don't know if I would do it because it is so dangerous, right? You could die like on the launch pad.
Yeah.
You could die in so many ways. Aliens, obviously, probably the #1 problem. You would be, I was going to say you would be immortalized, right? Because only so many people have been to space. Although at this point, a decent number of people have been to space. I say that though. Can you name anyone who's been to space apart from like the main 2?
There a guy who was big at Microsoft or something.
Oh, well, Jeff Bezos went to space.
See?
But I mean, like, I was thinking about this the other day. Like, there's so many people who are so famous, but after like 100 years, everyone just forgets you. Like, you have to be so famous to be remembered by history.
Yeah, like an Elvis Presley.
Exactly. Or like Charlie Chaplin or whatever. You think of how many like huge Hollywood stars there were in the 20s that like no one's heard of now. And that was only 100 years ago.
There was less stars because in the 20s there was only, 10 people who were in movies and they were all Do you know what I mean?
But that makes it even crazier that we don't remember any of them. Like the public doesn't know them.
Yeah, but the ones who broke through, like these days, give it 100 years. Like there's so many people.
True.
Who will be remembered, aside from us, obviously.
Yeah, talk to the Townsends, obviously. Like they went to the moon in 69, but they think they went again in like 72. I couldn't for $1 million tell you who the other people were who walked on the moon. And that's really impressive. Not many people have been on the moon. No. Wallace and Gromit, obviously.
Would you go to the moon?
Going to the moon would be pretty sick because only a small number of people have done that. But that's even more risk of dying.
How many people have been to the moon?
In terms of walked on the moon, probably 10. Would we?
Seriously?
Are we going to look it up? Let's look it up.
I'll look it up.
Because we've only been like twice.
Me and you?
We've been 3 times, but because there's actually like nothing to do on the moon. That's why we don't go back.
How many people have walked on the moon?
I think you can fit every planet in the solar system between Earth and the moon. That's how far away the moon is. Hannah is so deep in her phone, has never done a Google search before, is apparently struggling with this question.
12.
12 people.
All male. Oh, good.
We need a woman on the moon.
And do you know what? I retract it. I'll go in the wind tunnel. The wind tunnel will blow me up to the moon. And I'll be the first. I'll be Apollo 18.
That would be such a strange milestone to like dedicate billions of dollars to be like, we need to put at least one woman on the moon. Right, get off your phone.
Sorry, but
you're not doing any podcasting.
How long does it take to get to the moon? Sorry, it does say that there were former 2 men who were supposed to get up to the moon, Jim Lovell and Fred Hayes. But then on the way up, the oxygen tank exploded. So they couldn't, when they got there, it was like, soz mates, you can't go out.
Oh no.
Anyway, the moon is missing more women.
More women on the moon.
Women in STEM. Get us up to the moon.
Women on the moon.
Would you go? No.
I would really struggle with it. I don't think you'd let me go.
Me and Suki would miss you.
Oh. I'd wave. You'd be like looking at the sky. Suki'd be like, Suki, look up there. She'd be like,
I'd be like this. I'd be like, it's none of my business what's going on up there. I'm not prepared to look up and see him.
If your spouse cheats on you in space...
Didn't that exact thing happen?
What? Really?
In Black Mirror. They were like...
yeah. Well, they were in space and the spouses were on Earth. I think cheating exists on Earth, but does cheating exist in space?
Who are you going to be getting with in space? There's no women up there.
In space, no one can hear you cheat. This is why we need to get more women on the moon, so the astronauts can get cheating. Maybe that's why they didn't send the women up with them, because they knew.
The rules don't apply on the moon.
All the astronauts putting their keys in a bowl on the moon. There is a thing you can do called the Vomit Comet, which is a plane that goes up and I believe completes what's known as a parabola. And if that isn't wrong, then I'm the biggest dickhead ever for trying to use that big word. But I think it's basically where it just goes up really fast and down really fast, kind of like a roller coaster. And in that moment where it drops, you're weightless in the plane for a short period, maybe like a minute or 2. And they use it to train astronauts. Sometimes they film movies in it. And it's called the Vomit Comet because apparently it really makes you throw up because obviously your stomach is being...
Does everyone throw up?
I think most people tend to throw up because you're being like, 0G'd.
Sorry, so I'm floating in the wind tunnel and I'm throwing up.
There's no wind tunnel. You're on a plane. Get the wind out of your sails.
And I'm throwing up.
I think they go 0G and then afterwards you maybe throw up or whatever because it's like being on a really fast roller coaster. But they did an experiment once. You can look it up where they brought a bunch of cats. Sometimes I think scientists are really just taking the mick. They brought a bunch of cats up into the Vomit Comet because obviously, cats can right themselves in the air. Cats always land on their feet. So they were like, if cats always land, this is such like 70s science logic of like, well, if cats always land on their feet, what were they going to do in zero gravity when there's nowhere to land? And so there's a video of the cats and they're just basically spinning in place. And you actually feel really sorry for them because the cats keep trying to right themselves, but then they just keep floating around. And then all these quote unquote scientists are just in the plane laughing their heads off. And it's like,
oh, that's so mean.
But also they probably spent like $1 million on this experiment. What's the point?
What did we learn?
What did we learn?
Oh, that makes me feel sad. That's a horrible...
There's that tweet, those tweets that just stay in your brain forever. And or maybe it was a Tumblr post, and it says a scientist will see a mouse and say, "I'm going to put that creature in a situation."
It's true.
They love putting a creature in a situation. You were in a situation recently, weren't you? And then use that as a seamless segue.
I actually have thought of something that happened to us the other day, which was,
of course you have,
as close as I could get to probably like, I don't know. I can imagine what being at a festival must be like for people, excitement-wise.
What?
So the best thing ever happened to us the other day. We were in the Japan Centre, having a little mosey around, and we
London.
saw the best scenario. It's like something that you could only hope and dream of, like something from a soap. It was these two boys.
Teens,
if you will. And they had been shoplifting. But instead of them being like, I don't know, them getting the police involved, what the tactic was to kind of scold them in front of the whole shop. And it was just delicious.
You and I have very different concepts of fun.
I lived for it.
You did.
I was living, loving, and learning.
Hannah is like, you might be the nosiest person who's ever, you are just, the problem is you're the nosiest person who ever lived, and you're also the least subtle person, because some drama will unfold and you will be like, I have to get my little nose in the middle of this. You'll just be there like, and I have to say, stop staring, at least be subtle.
But I'm not getting involved. I'm not like, oh, what happened there? But I am just like listening from the sideline. It was like they were scolding the two teenagers and me. It's like the three of us were all stood there and I was like...
It was a classic thing almost from like an old movie where a guy was like, he wasn't speaking like this, but he might as well have been, where he was like, listen, kid, you're on the wrong path. You start stealing now, you'll be a criminal later. You still got time to get off this path. Like he was basically giving that kind of speech.
That is genuinely what the speech was like.
But in like a London accent.
But, you know, quite like, they were being told off. And I think they said basically, if you try and leave, we will call the police. So they were just like stuck having to listen to this, like, I don't know. I've never shoplifted. So that is one thing I can be like, cool. Boys.
I don't think I've ever shoplifted. I do think like if you're 13 and you steal some sweets, whatever, that's like rite of passage. But these were like these were kids who were too old to be doing that, and also everything in the Japan Center is really expensive. So you know, shame. No, we don't advocate stealing on Talk of the Townsend. But I will say, I looked at them and I was like, that is the worst feeling in the world when you're a kid and you're getting scolded by an adult who's not like an adult, you know.
The worst.
Like I could already feel my face feeling like hot of like how mortifying that would be when a strange adult tells you off.
Yeah.
And they're right.
I get my whole life, whenever someone has been told off, especially at school, when they'd like make an announcement when they didn't know someone who did something. At school, I remember this vividly, there was someone who did something quite horrible in the toilets. And I remember they made this announcement to the whole school, right, that this person had done this. Mm-hmm. They'd smeared something, if you will, if you pick up what I'm putting down.
What possible? What? I don't understand. What could they possibly have?
They'd smeared something all over the toilet walls, which is strange. I'll give you that.
Oh, shit!
And I remember that they obviously didn't know who did it because there were no like CCTV in our school toilets. And I remember they made this announcement and like I felt like my face was on fire. And I was like, I almost was like shaking. And I didn't do it. I promise you.
It's like when you go through the metal detector at the airport and you're like so stressed and it's like, I know I've got nothing. I've just taken all my possessions out of my pockets. What's going to happen?
Yeah. I think as a kid, we both went to quite strict schools and I just felt like the whole time, like I was being told off. So like when I was being told off for something that I didn't even do, I still felt stressed and like, oh my God, I've done something bad. When I was like, I didn't smear shit on the I didn't do it.
I'm not going to lie, Hannah. This whole story makes it sound like you did it. I mean, it sounds like you're finally coming to terms
all
and
the
confessing.
Other 600 people I went to school with will have forgotten this, but not me. They'll be like, oh yeah, I guess that did happen.
It weighs heavy on your conscience.
There's a reason.
Yeah, I went to Catholic school, and the whole kind of default mode of Catholic school is you're in trouble until we tell you otherwise. Yeah. You're basically always just baseline in trouble, just generally speaking. I mean, that is also Catholicism in general, is you're always a bit in trouble. Original sin will follow you. So, you know, and they also loved the classic like collective punishment of like, if we don't find out who did this, everyone is going to get detention. And then, of course, everyone gets detention. And it's just constant, like, you're in trouble. Because so, yeah.
Also, but if that's the thing that the barter, right? If we don't find out who does this, everyone's going to get in trouble. It's like, well, you've got no reason to stand up. Like, that wouldn't make me stand up because I'm just like, well, who cares? At least we're all in it together.
Yeah, you're right. The game theory is in situation 1, I get punished. In situation 2, I get punished, but kind of less because they never know it's me. So using the game theory, the prisoner's dilemma.
A punishment shared is a punishment halved, surely, because it's not going to be as serious. Like, you're not going to expel everyone, but if you could expel one person. So I'd be like, great, I guess we all suffer.
Well, the problem is the logic of it is really weird when you dig into it, because ultimately what they're hoping is the rest of the class will either bully the person into confessing, or after the class is done being punished, everyone will go and like beat up that guy. That's basically what the teachers are hoping, right? Is that like...
I don't think anyone's hoping people get beat up.
Well, in a way, they're hoping that by punishing the whole group, the group will grow to resent that one person. Isn't that the point of it?
But in my situation, if no one knows who's smeared on the toilet
I
walls,
do.
You can't just choose someone and beat them up.
No, but they're hoping that, well, usually the class knows who it is, but no one wants to be a snitch
No one
on
knew.
account of not wanting a stitch. Here's a question. Did every school have a phantom pooer?
Did yours?
Of course it did. No.
And they found each other in later life and got married.
Emphasis on phantom. I think every school had a phantom pooer.
What do you mean phantom, though? Like they didn't exist?
No, as in like they were never identified.
What did your one do?
I think we had one in primary school. I'm pretty sure we had one in secondary school.
What were they doing?
They were either pooing, and of course, I'm sorry to our viewers and listeners that this is so uncouth, but it is the facts of life. They were either making a mess outside of the toilet parameters, or some sort of smearing situation. But I bet we'll put this online, and I bet everyone will be like, "Yeah, I had a phantom pooer situation."
Come forward if you were the phantom pooer. Join us.
Because I went to an all-boys school as well.
I went to an all-girls school.
So you can imagine the kind of phantom pooing situation at an all-boys school. Wait, hold on. Yeah, what's happening at the all-girls school?
I know. That's what I'm saying. Phantom pooer.
Shocking.
Smearing.
A pooette. A pooess.
but yeah.
Is there a Mr. Phantom Pooer?
I've worked out the ultimate test for if you have anxiety.
Okay.
Yeah, it's proven by...
I'm a bit worried to hear about this, but okay, tell
I
me.
make fun of people with anxiety.
I have so much anxiety. I'm one of the most anxious people who's ever lived. I'm so anxious that you've just told me off about that. If I was allowed to make fun of anxiety, it's me.
Okay, I'm going to start that again.
Okay.
I have worked out the ultimate test to find out if you have anxiety.
Oh, I'm anxious to hear this.
I'm doing this for the bloody clips.
Okay, sorry. I'm doing it for the lols.
I've worked out the ultimate test for if you have I've worked out the ultimate test to find out if you have anxiety.
That's so interesting. I have to say, I'm anxious to find out.
Let's do it for the bloody clip.
Okay,
you can keep that on the podcast.
The podcast will get all of this.
All right, here we go.
Okay.
I've worked out the ultimate test to basically find out if you have anxiety.
Tell me more.
So, I read the other day that on Southwest Airlines, this isn't like proven by doctors or anything. Well, it might be.
You said it was the ultimate test.
I read the other day that Southwest Airlines,
Yep.
an American airline company, no reserved seating. It's a free-for-all.
That's already very anxiety-inducing.
Imagine. See, we're queuing up at the gate. Also, people are their worst self when they are traveling. We're queuing up at the gate, and I don't know where I'm going to sit. Am I going middle? Will I be on the aisle? Am I driving the plane?
Oh, yeah. That's a thought. If none of the seats are reserved, someone's going to have to sit in that captain's chair. You really got yourself with it. You get to the gate late, and they just hand you a captain's hat and a little set of wings. They're like, bad luck, buddy. You should have been here on time. You're flying the plane now.
Imagine that. I could never fly.
Because also, no one wants to be in the middle seat.
No one wants to be in the middle seat.
The fights that must break out about not wanting to be in the middle seat. Because also, let's be honest, people barely sit in their correct seats when they have assigned seats. People are so cheeky about this. They're like, hi, yeah, I noticed you have this aisle seat, but could I sit next to my stupid wife? But I don't love her enough to buy a seat next to her. No.
Yeah, people always want to shift in and changing anyway. I just can't believe it. I mean, we, holding our hands up, booked and paid to sit separately on a 14-hour flight the other day because we just couldn't. Neither of us basically wanted to be in the middle. But Southwest Airlines, someone's going to be in the middle, and it could be you. And I think it's almost worse to not prepare.
I will say we paid because airlines have discovered such an amazingly good scam, which is that you now have to pay to reserve a seat up until, I think you can reserve a seat for free 24 hours. Whatever.
Yeah.
At that point, every seat is booked. So they know what they're doing. So it's such a great trap because it's like, I don't want to pay to do this. It's a waste of money. But also, I have to.
Yeah.
Because 14 hours.
But is it fairer? Let's discuss. If no one, in Southwest, no one's paying up front. It's, it's when you get there. It's how early you queue.
I suppose it depends how long you're flying for, right? If I'm on like a 2-hour flight,
I
don't care.
I'm guessing Southwest is all internal flights.
Yeah, I know, but the US is a big place. You could be going, say you were flying from Alaska to Hawaii, for example, off the top of my head, 2 US states.
that classic 8 a.m. flight each day.
A bit of surf and turf, bit of hot and cold.
How long would that take?
40 minutes. I saw a thing on Twitter recently that apparently there are people, probably an alarming amount of people, who, when there's a map of the US, they'll often just put Alaska and Hawaii at the bottom.
Oh, yeah.
And apparently there are a worrying amount of people who grew up thinking that those were just 2 big islands
that you could just
south of the US that you could just go to, which is so funny when you consider I can't remember who said this. I think I can't remember if I heard this on a podcast or whatever, but if you consider the climate of Hawaii and Alaska and how different they are.
That's so funny.
It's one of those things where I'm like, did I read that? Did I hear that? Was I told that?
Did you think?
Did I make that up? You know what I mean?
Are you the Phantom Pooer?
Am I the Phantom Pooer? Yes. Do you ever find this? It's so hard these days to remember where you've got information from.
There's a lot of media.
Yeah, and not a lot of it's accurate, apart from this show.
Of course.
But a free-for-all for seats is crazy.
Something I thought of the other day, which is airline related and also ties in with Alaska to Hawaii. If a plane, okay, bear with me. If a plane is flying from like London to Ireland versus if it is flying from like London to Japan, does it go to the same height in the sky?
Hannah, I don't think that is a stupid question.
Isn't it?
Yeah, would you just waste time getting that high? If you're flying from London to Ireland, are you going to waste time getting really, really high just to immediately come down again?
It's that vomit
comet. I mean, I don't know.
London to Ireland is the vomit comet.
My favourite part of flying to Ireland is the short 0G section.
It's called with all the caps.
It's called splitting the G.
Very good.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Gosh.
Thank you. I'm on fire today. I flew to Edinburgh to go to the Edinburgh Fringe one time, which...
What, are you going to try and remember how high the plane was?
Well...
How are you tying this in?
Which, by the way, I'm doing Edinburgh again this year. I'm performing at the Edinburgh Fringe Festival. Please come and see me. 1st to 11th of August. Tickets available now.
Sorry, can you relate this back to...
Yes. I flew to Edinburgh and there were only 2 sections of the flight, takeoff and landing. I don't remember there being any mid-section.
There would have been a slight mid.
Yeah, but I think we really were cruising for like a really short period of time. So to answer your question, I'm like, I guess they go as high as they need before they need to start landing again.
In Friends where she's like, it's something to do with the wind or whatever about the planes.
That's my complete non-answer.
I wasn't asking you for like a scientific like explanation because obviously you're not going to be able to... I was just more like, what do you think? Because my instinct would tell me no. My instinct would tell me, like, if we've got time, we may as well go quite high. But with our London to Ireland, we've not got the time. So let's keep it at, like, a couple of thousand feet.
Isn't there also something that, like, if you fly higher, you can go faster?
Where are you getting this from?
Because I think it's something to do with... first of all, the sky's emptier. You're not having to... worry about birds, helicopters, flying machines that local mad professors have come up with. Drones. What else can we think of that flies? Bats. But also I think there's something to do with physics that if you're higher up, there's less air. So maybe there's less air resistance.
Space. Zero gravity.
Yeah. There's no wind resistance in space.
So to conclude, yes.
Or maybe it's not. To conclude, I think yes. I think that's a good question. But if you're flying... a short enough distance, sometimes the plane will go underground.
Of course, the secret tunnels.
The secret tunnels.
And they'll show you a video of the Titanic and say, that's where you've been.
Exactly, yes. I was thinking the other day, and I don't know if you can think of any examples of this, of things that exist that, 1, I can't really believe they exist, and 2, they feel like they're from the future, but they're everyday things. I've got 2 examples. The first is contact lenses. The fact that contact lenses, 1, exist, 2, work, and 3 are like pretty cheap is insane to me. It feels like a thing on paper of like, In the future, eyeglasses will be the size of a sliver of paper, and everyone will have personalized little plastic ones, and they'll be disposable. And like the fact that that exists and works makes no sense to me.
Totally.
You could easily imagine an inventor being like, how would that ever work?
It is amazing. And then they don't hurt your eyes, and they're kind of great. And they can also like make them to different prescriptions.
Yeah. I'm wearing them right now, and they always work. Then in terms of like, I never put them in and they've got the focusing a bit wrong and it's a bit blurry. They always work. You're not the best with contact lenses, are you, personally?
I don't wear them.
You should wear them.
I get a bit nervous.
You're quite blind.
I went for that course in Specsavers when I tried to get them. I had to sit with this woman and she was like, and now take them out your eye, and now put them in your eye, and now take them out your eye. And I'm a bit icky with touching my eyes anyway. And it was just quite a lot. And like my eyes were like red raw because it is really hard to learn.
It's really hard to learn. And the hardest time is the beginning. And it must be really nuts to be the person who teaches people because you're just watching people mess up their eyes.
But you have to do this little course at Specsavers in order for them to give you contact lenses.
I did it myself.
She was like, and now pop them back out. And I was like, and she's like watching me and she was like demonstrating. And we were in this room, just me and this woman. I'll never forget it. And I was just like, streaming tears, and then they sent me away with this little box of contact lenses, and at one point she was like, do it again, and then she was like, actually it's okay, because I think she was just like,
it's part of our oath as opticians that we're not allowed to let people blind themselves on our premises. We can't let her go out with worse vision than she came in. I did that though. My problem was that I have no problem touching my eyes, so I was too aggressive with it. And he was like, you don't need to be so harsh on your eyes. I was like getting a little spade in there. It's one of those things, you can learn it really fast, and then it's like second nature. Like, I can take them out without a mirror and stuff.
I don't doubt that, but I don't think especially with like having nails and stuff, I'm like, it's very hard.
But you had them in and you were like, it's amazing to be able to see.
I have very dry and sensitive eyes though. After a couple of hours, I was like...
But your eyes get used to it as well. I remember coming out when I didn't know I needed glasses until I was like 16. I remember coming out the opticians and seeing a tree and seeing individual leaves for the first time. And I was like, oh, right, this is what the world looks like. Second invention that feels like it's from the future, Shazam.
Yeah, I agree with that.
The app that can tell what music is playing. Because, you may forget this, Shazam is so old. Shazam was like one of the first apps.
Yeah.
I think they had it on like the iPhone 1. It was literally Shazam and that thing that lets you pretend you're drinking a beer.
And the popcorn one.
And the popcorn one. And the one that's a gun. Do you ever have that?
No.
You could reload like...
I was too busy being like...
You could get your phone out and just be like, pew, pew.
But Shazam has got better, hasn't it? Because it used to be not great. But now you can sing. You can just hum or sing a tune.
First of all, I would say I think Shazam's always been pretty good. But can you hum into it now?
I think so.
I love Shazamming. I'm always Shazamming, aren't I?
You are always Shazamming. You really are, though. There'll be like an advert on TV that will have like a little jingle that's not even a proper... It'll be like, funkypigeon.com, and you'll be like...
What could that be? Because it's built into the iPhone now. You can get it from your little control thing.
I know. I don't have it.
From a little shortcut. You could have it. I love Shazamming
You'd
stuff.
love to Shazam.
I love Shazam. But that feels like it's from the future as well. How the hell does that work?
Why do you think they named it Shazam?
I guess because it works like magic. It's like, Shazam, here's your results.
Oh, yeah, I guess. That's good. But you would have thought it'd be like, name that tune if it was so old.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm not saying that's good.
What's on the wireless?
I'm not saying that that's a good, but like back in the day, like a lot of things were a bit more like Blockbuster.
Cut the rope.
Netflix. You know, things.
Yeah.
Because it's so old, you would have thought that it was like, you know, Apple used to be a bit more like Apple Music. The iPhone. Shazam.
You know, I think possibly the most expensive URL ever sold was, as in a website name.
Yeah.
I think it was sold a few years ago. Can you guess what the most expensive... I think it was the most expensive ever sold.
Music.com. Food.com.
Think about what the internet's for.
Right, well...
I think it was sex.com. I believe was the most expensive.
That's not what the internet's for. The internet's for Habbo Hotel.
It's for Habbo Hotel and for Shazamming.
And Shazam.
And on that note, Hannah and I have got a reservation at the Habbo Hotel we need to get to.
And on that note, me.
And on that musical note that I'm checking what it is, I'm Benedict Townsend.
And I have been Hannah Townsend.
Right, I don't like you saying that because it implies that you're playing a character called Hannah Townsend that isn't you.
Goodbye.
Goodbye. This has been Talk of the Townsends. Make sure to follow on all good platforms. We'll see you next time. And Hannah will leave us with our famous catchphrase. Space is none of my business.